Hello and welcome to your weekly podcast here on Four Lads Our Dream. My name's Andrew and it's a pleasure to be joined tonight by two of my very favourite podders, Kenny and Sheryl. Very exciting. We got our first away win in 2025. Massive news for us. Only our fourth this season, I think. So, kind of shows where we are falling down, if you like, in the league. But that's not new. Let's go through it really quickly because there were plenty of talking points to come out of this one as well. Lineup was Butland in goal, Tav, Proper, Nsiala and Yefti on the back four, Diamande and Raskin. We're going to talk about Diamande a lot, I think. Haji, Dessers and Bayrami, and then Igaman. Although I think Dessers and Igaman are probably the other way around. I mean, the front four was quite fluid, I think, Sheryl. So I think the first half, poor start, obviously. We get a good goal back through Diamande. That second half, we've got opening 5 minutes is end to end, and then I think Rangers come more into the ascendancy. We're going to talk about the red card incident at the very end of the game a little bit later on. So let's focus on, the 90 minutes prior to that then, Sheryl. I mean, what did you make of the performance? Was it a case of that first half hour, same old story, and then pleasant surprise?
Yeah, it had that kind of sinking, inevitable feeling, didn't it? It just had that kind of Sunday, 12 o'clock away kick-off feeling about it. So do you know what? If we're looking for positives, there were plenty. I think looking at the injuries, even from Thursday, it's the old adage, isn't it? If it wasn't for bad luck, you would have no luck whatsoever. I don't think it told us a lot, particularly that first half, about things that we weren't already concerned about. But certainly that second half performance, or even out with that first half hour, the goal came out of absolutely nowhere, but it seemed to, who I know we'll talk about later, it absolutely galvanised Diamande, as it did the rest of the team as well. So I think there's some huge positives to take from it.
I completely agree. I think the way that Dundee had set up to just foul Diamande constantly, like in a rotating arrangement, so it's very smart. That just seemed to annoy him a lot. Had a word with the referee. That obviously, stood him in good stead for later on. And then it just seemed to fire him up because that's the first time I can really think of that he's seized control of a game himself and really gone for it, driven the team forward, which is good to see.
Yeah, and I know we'll talk about him later, but it's that bizarre refereeing Scottish culture of whatever happens in the first 10 to 15 minutes is absolutely fine. It doesn't matter. It doesn't appear to happen anywhere else in the world, but it's absolutely fine over here. But like you say, Andrew, it actually gave Diamande a bit of a rocket and he got absolutely stuck in. He's been a wee bit hit and miss, a wee bit hot and cold with performances. So like you say, it did a huge favour in terms of getting him in, grabbing a hold of the game as well.
Yeah, and I think, as you said, when we say we don't have much luck, Dundee United hit the post about 50 times during that game. I'm watching the highlights back thinking, there's no way that this stayed at 3-1. Dundee must have got about 50 here. It was ridiculous. But, I mean, we've not had exactly a lot of luck to seek. So take it when we can get it, Kenny, that second half then, I mean, Rangers are obviously much more in the ascendancy. Ron Proper just gets left by himself in their box after a set piece. Great goal though. I mean, he does well to take it as well as he does. Dessers is doing a lot of good stuff right now. And again, as I said after the Man U pod, he does this kind of stuff all the time. So we'll reluctantly accept 10 million quid for him. Yeah, it'll be a heartbreaker, but we'll cope with it somehow. What did you make then of that second half? I mean, the first half performance, that first half hour, less said about that the better, I think. But certainly that last 15 minutes of that half and then the 45 after that, I think stood us in much better stead.
Yeah, I thought we were really good second half, actually. Well, certainly going forward, we were really good. Still a bit dodgy and ropey at the back, but that goal, the Robin Proper goal came at the right time for us because I had said yesterday on the pod that it was a little bit of basketball for that first 5-6 minutes. It just the game just went up and down like that. It was as a Rangers fan, I wasn't exactly comfortable with it, put it that way. So when we did get the goal, and to be fair, as I say, with Robin Proper, I thought I'm surprised he was there. What's he doing there? But at the same time, he took it, for all this good deflection, he's taken it actually really pretty well. He's nice and composed, and he just hits it on target. And if you don't buy a ticket, you don't win the raffle. So it's gone in. But look, overall, I mean, Cyril Dessers' goal is just one of those things that you just sit and shake your head at with him. What is this with this guy that he can score goals like this and missed the way he did against Fraserburgh last Sunday? So he's an enigma wrapped in a Rubik's cube, that boy. But listen, fair play to him. He's managed to get me up out my seat twice this week. But look, overall, as I said, for me personally, going forward, I thought that was as good as I've seen us away from home in a long, long time. Actually, defensive issues and frailties are still there. As I said, on the aftermatch yesterday, there's a frailty at the back, and it's a lack of physicality. There's no real great organisation. A lot of that could be happening, I beg your pardon, because of the amount of injuries we have got. But we're kind of getting bullied at the back. A ball into the box, it just is causing us chaos, mate. So I don't want to take the gloss off a good win by overly concerning myself with it, but it is there. But then again, as I said, we scored 3 yesterday, and we could have scored 5 or 6, I thought. So delighted with the performance overall.
I mean, mixed bag, but we'll always take 3 points away from home, especially this season. I'm certainly on that defence as well. I mean, you'd say probably our 2 first-choice defenders are out right now. Suter and Balogun weren't available. Those, for me at least, I think are our 2 strongest. So not to have those guys as options. That's along with the other injury list that we've got, Sterling, and then Matondo, Cortez as well. Although Rabbi Matondo maybe less of a miss, or potentially not quite injured, maybe just looking elsewhere. We don't have our problems to seek in that department. So the fact that we're able to cobble together a decent 11 and get the result was a good thing. On the being bullied off the ball thing, I'll come to you first, Sheryl, but I'm keen to get both of your thoughts. Is there an element of we're being bullied off the ball, or is this fouls are more permissible when they're against teams playing in blue than they are in tangerine, let's say? Because I was listening to the game, I wasn't able to watch it, unfortunately, live, but I was listening to the game on the radio, and that they were making the same point about us being bullied off the ball. But at the same time, there was a lot of talk about how Nick Walsh was letting a lot of heavy challenges go in against Rangers player, and obviously Diamande in particular. Is it a case of, this is more of a refereeing thing, or is it a combination of both, Sheryl?
Do you know what? I think as much as Nick Walsh was absolutely shambolic on several occasions yesterday, unfortunately, we cannot pin the frailty of that defence on Nick Walsh. It would be lovely if we could. But do you know that goal yesterday? It's incredible how we can pack our box and still have nobody that's actually going to deal with it. There was about, I think, 3 or 4 chances yesterday to clear that ball, and nobody did it. And I think kind of back to the goal, the Motherwell goal away, the Hibs goal away as well. It's just that, I don't know, it to me, and this is the unforgivable thing, it looked like Dundee United wanted it more. They were more aggressive. So no, this is one of the few things from yesterday that we can't pin on Nick Walsh, because as much as it was 3-1, up until the point that third goal went in, as much as the midfield came into it more, certainly in the second half, we still looked really, really ropey at the back. And it's not even, we understand that there's there's loads of injuries, but it's the basics that we're not doing.
Yeah. And I think you do see that with our defence. It would be nice if this was the first time it was like, oh no, we had 2 or 3 chances to clear that, or 3 or 4 chances to clear that. But it's not. We've seen that multiple times when we've conceded goals. And it has been that just no one takes charge. No one's going, no, I'm getting that away. There's a lot of just, what's going on over here? Watching the ball, as opposed to being aggressive and just dealing with it, which is unfortunate. And we know that that's going to be a weakness of the team. Nonetheless, we do manage to get the result, but just before full time, Kenny, Nick Walsh who, yeah, as Sheryl's intimated and as I've said as well, did not have a good game, I don't think. I'm not sure anyone's arguing that he did. Maybe fans of a certain team, I don't know. But he really struggled to be, I think, equitable. He wasn't exactly fair in his decision making. It seemed like a lot of challenges went in very heavy on Rangers players, no punishment. Rangers players being, say, equally or even less aggressive, seemed to get much sterning talking tos. And we see that in the 95th minute there, Kenny. Diamande is being fouled, kicked in the back of the legs, sort of turns round and a hand brushes the guy's face, like gently, like a caress almost. Does not look any more serious than that. Red card's out straight away. Fine, mistakes happen. We then go to the monitor. We're doing some VAR. The fact that VAR has happened by itself suggests that there's some doubt about the decision from the VAR team. They want it to be re-reviewed. You'd say that would provide some doubt. And given that the thing was reviewed 10, 11 times, you'd think there would be some element of doubt. Is it necessary for the red card? I think, as Clement said after the match, if that's a red card, you're handing out 3 or 4 every match in Scotland for the lightest of handbags, almost is what you'd probably call it, because it's not more serious than that. It's not a Bill El Mosney punch to the face or anything like that. It's a lot more gentle than that. The fact that red card's upheld is mad. We understand the appeal is going to be held tomorrow, so I would probably bet some hefty cash that will be overturned if we adhere to the general rules of the match. But given that a statement came out, although it was quickly walked back and said that it was not a statement, it was just off the record chat, Kenny, I'm not sure how that one's going to land, but for me, that's a crazy decision.
Yeah, it's nonsense. I mean, it's just absolute nonsense. Read the law, and read the rules of the game, and it's nothing like a red card. It's just not. And the issue I have with it, it's one of those kind of crazy things that you've mentioned yourself about Walsh. Diamande gets smashed 3 times in the first 20 minutes of the game, and each and every one of them for me is a booking, and none of them get booked. One of them is in the first couple of minutes of the game, first minute I think, and the boy smashes right through his ankle. That's okay. There was one about 15-20 minutes in that smashes through the back of his knee, with the entire body weight going through the back of the knee. It's a dangerous tackle, and it's one of those tackles that actually, if you've seen European football and European competition, you might well go off for it. No booking in Scotland. So Diamande actually stood 2 or 3 times after these challenges and had a proper go at Walsh to be told to go away, and there's a real lack of humility about Nick Walsh yesterday, but Kevin Clancy, Don Robertson, all these guys, they're all the same. There's some absolutely horrendous referees in this country who don't know how to manage a game of football. And you get to the point where you look at that red card and you just, wow, that he's been called to the monitor. We're seeing it on TV, we're seeing the replays, and you're giving it, right, that's going to get rescinded. And he has the absolute arrogance to look at it and say, no, I'm not prepared to be that guy with humility. I'm going to be that arrogant guy that doesn't back down, he's going to double down. And I just find it absolutely bonkers that, thankfully, all over the country, in England and even in Europe, this is actually catching the eye, this referee, this decision yesterday. It's all over the place that people are actually looking at that and going, look at this. And this is what we're having to deal with. And very, very quickly, Andrew, what I'm going to say to you is Dundee United are sitting in 3rd place at the minute, I think. And when you look back over the last 10, 15 years or so, when the refereeing standards have got worse and worse and worse in this country. See those teams that are sitting in third, fourth place and perhaps qualifying through the cup or whatever. They're getting into European competition really, really early. And if you notice it, what's happening here is they're losing to teams from Ireland and Wales and Malta and Cyprus and Latvia and all over the place. Teams that they shouldn't, with all respect to these clubs, shouldn't be able to lay a glove on a top 4, top 5 side in Scotland. And the simple fact is, it's that they get refereed in a different way. Said the first 10 minutes, everything and anything goes in the first 10 minutes in a Premier League game. Whereas you'll find yourself sent off very, very quickly in a European competition. So therefore, these clubs are going into these competitions, Andrew, and having to play a completely different way. They're having to back off. They're having to try and play football instead of smashing folk about up and down the park. And that's the reason. And I actually said this to a mate of mine 15 years ago, 10 years ago about this. And he's an ex-referee, and he said, "You've got a point, actually." And I said, "I know I have, because that is exactly what's happening. It's clear as day." Now,
Yep.
It's just one of those things. It's a preposterous decision, Andrew, and it will get overturned. And if it doesn't get overturned, there'll be chaos ensues.
Yeah. I mean, Sheryl, I imagine you probably agree with most of what Kenny said there. But yeah, I mean, for you, red card, not red card?
It was just ridiculous. Do you know what? I have to be honest. We were down in Manchester for the weekend, and I watched it in a hotel bar. But we had plans for the next bit, so I left just after the third goal. And on the way, we were going over to the Etihad, and I phoned my dad just to have a quick chat about the game. And he was like, "God, what did you think of the red? That was an absolute..." And we're like, "What?" We missed it completely. So obviously we stopped. We were able to have a quick look at it. It was insane. Absolutely nuts. And nobody other than standard pantomime villain Chris Sutton said it was all right, which was ridiculous. And I think was it Sean Dillon that was beside him, the ex-Dundee United player, which kind of tells you everything, don't you? But just to back up your point there about the kind of the European side of things, Kenny, no better illustration of that was there than that game on last Wednesday night that had 3 disallowed goals and a sending off. Would that have happened domestically? Absolutely not.
Yep. We can always make certain assumptions about why referees get it so badly. The fact that they're not professional, and I'm not making a value judgment. I'm just saying that they're not professionally employed as referees. I'm not saying anything else. But it's that fact. This is a part-time thing. This is a gig they do at the weekends, or when they've got an evening away from work. There needs to be a better standard of refereeing. How you achieve that, I don't know. Willie Collins in charge of it though, so he'll get to the bottom of how to make good referees, I am sure. For me, I mean, as I said, I'm listening to this on the radio, so I only heard the thing, didn't see it, and so I assumed, and I was listening on BBC Scotland as well, so you can never make any assumptions of what's actually happened on the pitch based on that. But again, it was like, okay, well, I've not seen it, so I'll come back and watch the highlights and watch it a bit objectively, because it couldn't be that blatant, right? And it is because it's a nothing. I echo what the manager said. You see 3 or 4 of those every game in Scotland, if that's a red.
Yeah, it was the fact that he almost, because one of the first things my dad said to me was, he could not wait to get that card out his pocket. And I'm thinking he's maybe watching it with these blue tinted spectacles on. But when we watched it back, no, he was right. Walsh could not wait to go over there. And then you think, okay, he's going to look at it. VAR's called him over. There's that element of doubt. He's going to look. No, it was just nuts.
It's unbelievable, isn't it, that you get sent over to a monitor by your fellow colleague, your fellow referee, who's turning around and saying in your ear, "Look, you need to come and have a look at this," and he doesn't even flinch. And as I said, it's this beat it kind of attitude, and you're like, this is crazy. And listen, for any guys out there that are watching this that aren't perhaps Rangers fans, we're fully aware this is happening all over the country, up and down the country. You see it week in, week out. We're not suggesting anything other than the fact that they are utterly incompetent and the standard isn't good enough. And, very quickly, you mentioned Chris Sutton and Sky, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of done with this panto villain bollocks that we're having to endure when we're watching Scottish football on Sky Sports. They are treating it like a tin pot, and enough's enough of this, and we should all be complaining actually about how absolutely dire the product is that they're producing for us, because all you need to do is look at Monday Night Football or whatever, and you're getting 5.5 hours. You're getting an analysis. You're getting all the greatest technology, and what we've got is two dafties sitting in a booth in a stadium shouting like Punch and Judy for the entire game. And I don't mean to be disrespectful to any individual on that, but it's true. That is what it is. It is literally like watching a pantomime, and it's really got to be better than this.
No, I agree, Kenny. I mean, I've actually met Sutton in real life, which was, a pleasure. I was meeting Ali at the same time, so that was a bit nicer. But still, a lot of this is a character. He's playing the heel. He's playing the villain. I watch WWE, and that's far more entertaining. I can watch that instead. I don't need to see this in my football stuff. And Sutton can be a good analyst as well when he's not covering a Scottish game. It's just something about this league, for some odd reason, makes him do the thing. And to be totally fair, Boydie will do exactly the same thing on the other side of the coin as well. It's pantomime villains. No interest in that. I'd like to, see football analysis instead. Crazy.
That's exactly my point, Andrew. He is not without blame on this, Chris Boyd, either. And Chris Boyd, when you read him or when you listen to him, he's really articulate and he knows the game, and so does Sutton. So they're playing on this. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm just really bored of watching that. It's pathetic.
Yeah. Let's move past the game now. I'm sure there'll be lots to rumble, especially if whatever happens on Tuesday happens. We have some movements in terms of the squad. Kieran Dowell is now away to Birmingham on loan. I don't know if that's an option or an obligation to buy. I'm hoping. I hope he comes back and smashes it for us. He's scored a whole 2 goals for us, I think, over the time he's been here. So well worth keeping around. Tom Lawrence and Ravi Matondo are both also strongly linked with moves away. Nothing confirmed on that yet. We know obviously the issue with Ravi, personal terms breaking down for that initial transfer that he was linked with, but I understand there's plenty of interest elsewhere. We also hear that Leeds have got some interest in Cyril Dessers. So again, lads, bidding starts at 10 million quid. He does this kind of stuff all the time. Dundee United goal, Man U goal, all the time, every game. It's fantastic. So I mean, we'll reluctantly part with him for something at least in the double digits. And we also understand that both Zach Lovelace and Finlay Curtis are in talks for new contracts at Rangers, which I think is a good idea because, again, they're talented boys. They've demonstrated Zach Lovelace's assist for Dessa's goal was just the latest thing that he'd done. And I think those are both promising young players. So it's good that we're seeing locking down good bits of the squad and maybe just trying to trim the fat elsewhere in the squad. Let's move on quickly, and we'll touch briefly on our last Europa League group stage game. Union Saint-Gilloise are who we've got next up at Ibrox. Sheryl, it's a must-win. We're unfortunate not to get something out of the Man U game, which would have left us with a bit more of a comfortable position, but we're still potentially in reach of getting into that top 8 and the automatic qualification to the round of 16. Even if we don't get that, we're still in that kind of middle group where you'll have to go through a playoff round. That's actually better for us, I think, in terms of coefficient points and in terms of financial implications as well. So although it's a must win, I think to help ourselves, it's not that same level of urgency that we would have probably been expecting right at the start when this group was drawn out.
No, and do you know what? It's a brilliant place when you think about some of our form this season that we've got ourselves into this position. Do you know, some excellent, particularly away performances as well. Difficult to call. I'm not hugely worried about it. It's a Thursday night. We're at home. It's a must win. The atmosphere, I think, is going to be excellent as well. We know in terms of injuries, but look, we had to pitch these young guys in last week, and it was they were excellent. So if you're calling on if we have to go and pitch these guys in again, do you know what? Then they're up for it, and they're up to it as well. They showed that. Looking at Bailey Rice, was not remotely overawed on Thursday. So if it comes to it, I don't see why we can't do that final push and get a result.
Completely agree. We know that Man U are, despite their current position in their own league and how that form's been, we know that they're going to be a step up from USG. So you'd think, again, dangerous making assumptions about which Rangers team's going to turn up, but it's Rangers Thursdays, Kenny. I mean, surely we go on and do this, right?
Oh, you certainly hope so. I agree with Sheryl. It'll be a good game. It'll be interesting to see how we do. And for me, personally, I don't know if you remember, we played them a couple of years ago in the Champions League qualifiers, and they kind of crumbled at Ibrox a little bit. They kind of bottled it a little bit when I think it was Big Tillman scored the first one, if I remember right. I could be wrong, but I'm sure he did. Maybe he didn't. Maybe it was the third one. I can't remember now. But anyway, the point being that they are much more experienced now than they were a couple of years ago. They've been doing reasonably well in Europe, so they'll come, as I say, with no great fear, I don't think, and they're in the same amount of points as us. So they've got plenty to play for too. They'll still have that wee outside chance of finishing top 8 as well. But I totally agree with Sheryl. It is one of those things. But at Ibrox, it's Thursday night. Let's go and get at them. And I agree again that we've got a few players that are missing and all the rest of it, but I'm not overly concerned with that. I think we just go and play the game, and if we play the way we can, I think we'll win the game, mate.
Could this be as well where inspiration comes from the most unlikely of sources as well? Because I believe that last week Nick Walsh sent off a couple of their players in Europe, so it could be a kind of circular thing. He could be, I don't know, he could have done us a massive favour, as unlikely as that sounds.
I mean, I suspect the managers will be shaking hands going, here's to the crapness of Nick Walsh, It's something we've both experienced recently, so, we can just get on with it.
4 players were sent off in that game last week. 4 in the last 15 minutes.
Loves a red
card.
No
idea why, but seems a bit excessive.
Excessive hand-holding or something like that, probably, Kenny. Just, getting too affectionate with each other. You never know, right? It's going to be an interesting one for sure. As Kenny says, we both teams have got something to play for here. We're down to the bare bones. The European squad selection has not helped us because we'll have certain players, Hadji, unavailable, for instance. So again, to echo what Sheryl said, though, we've seen so much strength from the younger kids come through and playing this game. If they're not overawed against Man U away from home, then there certainly should be no fear about putting them in a home game. Ibrox under the lights, European Thursdays, bring it on, So that's us for tonight. It has been a pleasure talking to you all. Kenny, my friend, thank you so much.
No, thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Sheryl. Enjoyed that. Good fun.
Lovely. And Sheryl, again, I think my second time on the big pod, which it isn't. But yeah, it's been very good to have you with us. So thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for having me. I
appreciate it. Again, as ever, thank you to everyone out there watching, listening. We thank you so much for doing that. Keeps us going, keeps us doing this thing. Thank our sponsors as well. They empower us to do this. So thank you to those guys as well. It's been a pleasure, as always. We will be back hopefully on Thursday with a vlog. If not, we will talk to you on Friday, where another episode of the Big Pod will be out. It's always a pleasure, folks. Thank you so much. Until we talk to you again, bye for now. Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clyde Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, along with Art of Gold. Thank you for listening or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.